Hi everyone, my name is Taylor Roberts and this workshop is when is the right time? Teaching children about sex and pornography. Just so you know, I am a marriage and family studies major at Brigham Young University, Idaho. And for one of my classes, I had to make a workshop and I've really enjoyed making it. And I hope what you learn is valuable and something that you can use for your life and for your children. So we're going to go ahead and just dive right into it. I have a few videos and a few PowerPoints to share, so I'm excited to share with you guys. The first spot I want to start off is talking about sex. That's about the first half of the presentation will be about sex. The second half will be more about pornography. When it comes to sex, schools are known to have horror stories teaching about sex ed. And everybody has their experience of learning about sex during school. And I wanted to kind of just start with a kind of funny video just to start off. I'm going to go ahead and
don't have sex.
Share my screen here. Okay. This is from the movie Mean Girls, if you've ever seen that.
Health class.
Don't have sex, because you will get pregnant and die. Don't have sex in the missionary position. Don't have sex standing up. Just don't do it. Promise? Okay, everybody take some rubbers. At your age, you're going to be having a lot of urges. You're going to want to take off your clothes and touch each other. But if you do touch each other, you will get chlamydia and die.
Health class.
All right. Well, that's just a funny video that, I feel like a lot of us can relate to, is how awkward the talk is at school. Doing some research on what schools are teaching, there was a lot about what schools are lacking. Schools today take the approach of teaching in technical terms for sex, such as, reproduction systems, risks, and negative issues. They miss the mark on a lot of good benefits, such as emotional and health benefits, which, we'll kind of go into a little bit more in depth. But when you think about, at least from my experience in school, they just talked about kind of like what the male and female body parts are and what they do, but they didn't really touch on what is sex, what's the purpose of it, what's, other than for procreation reasons. They didn't, touch on a lot of the benefits to it. It was always just the negatives to it. I feel like the teachings is just, there's a lack of teacher training. Most teachers feel awkward teaching the subject, wanting to get it over with, so they just kind of spat out the information and say, okay, this is done, check, next topic. There's not a lot of connection with children on this topic, and there's a lot of lack of funds for schools to teach a topic in this. There's different just education props that they could be using to more benefit the children in learning and make it a more fun experience rather than a traumatizing one. And going through this, we learned a lot about what parents want taught. And when going through that, parents want their children to be taught more about diseases and what the reason for sex is. There was a study done that I want to show you. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is share my screen again. All right, there we go. And there was a study done that said the typical high school class of 30 students, they said about 15 students have had sex at least once. The other 15, not at all. Out of those 15, 5 have had 4 or more partners, while the other 11 have had sex in the past 3 months. Now, out of those 11 that have had sex in the past 3 months, it was said that 5 of them did not use condoms, 9 of them did not use birth control, and 2 of them had been done while either being drunk or on drugs. And out of those 15 students, 1 in 4 will end up with an STD. That would account for 0.75 students in a class will have an STD, which is kind of a scary statistic that so many students are getting these STDs. The same lady who did that survey, Khan, said every year nearly 1 million US teenagers become pregnant, which works out to a rate of almost 90 pregnancies per 1,000 girls ages 15 to 19. It is the highest rate among all developed nations. The vast majority of US teen pregnancies are unintended, and roughly 500,000 of these young women give birth. And these girls are also less likely than others to finish high school or have steady jobs, and more likely to be on welfare and in unstable marriages. That's kind of scary that so many of these children and these youth are getting pregnant at such a young age. And the statistics are showing that when they have their babies, that it's going to put them in welfare and lower income. And it's just kind of wrong. And I think a lot of it comes down to not well education on the topic of sex and, you know, all of that kind of general stuff. And I'll show you a little chart here of what parents said that they really want to be taught to their children. Just give me one moment here. So all these parents, there was a common theme behind what they wanted taught to their children. And they said that about 97% wanted abstinence to be taught. 90% wanted sexual transmitted diseases to be taught, or STDs. 90% also said they wanted basics of reproduction to be taught. 90% also what birth control is, how it's used, and any type of birth control. 85% how to use a condom. 76% wanted homosexuality to be taught to their children. 94% wanted how to deal with the pressures of sex, and 88% wanted schools to be teaching how to talk with your partner about sex and an STD. Those are pretty big numbers of what these parents want taught. And I mean, a lot of this is not being taught today. Out of all the studies that I showed, how to deal with the pressures of sex was never taught to any students. Birth control, it was more of, here's a condom, you know, this is how it's used. But even that is pretty scarce to find a school that teaches like that. STDs were always just something that's been very roughly touched upon. It was more of, you can get a sexually transmitted disease, here are the different kinds, don't have sex, kind of a thing. While there's just a lot of just a lack of education on these topics that could change someone's life drastically. Studies have found that role-playing can be very beneficial to students when it comes to stuff like avoiding situations that lead to sex, practicing no, practice insisting on use of condom, all the things they couldn't do in their young lives with having a child, and making those personal connections to life would be like with having a child. You know, and it's just, there's not role plays done. You know, it's such, these teachers are having a rough time even just getting through the curriculum and not making it that personal connection with the students so they can understand more about what life would actually be like with a child. You know, we need teachers who believe in the program, who can relate well with young people, who are comfortable talking about sex, and who get trained so they can all be a part, you know, that they can do all these things well. The training component is very important. Study kept going on to say that a registered nurse and a former director of the state's Medicaid program says that informing fellow lawmaker about gains linked to sexual education was crucial to the bill's success. Maine was one of the nation's highest pregnancy rate 2 decades ago, But due in part of the state's existing sex education efforts, by 1999, it has fallen to roughly 30 births per 1,000 teenagers, one of the nation's lowest. So that's pretty much just saying that there was a bill made to have better sex education in schools, better programs. And because of that, there's been, now they were one of the biggest teen pregnancy states, and now they're one of the absolute lowest. And it's because of the grants they've been given to have those sexual education classes and to have those teachers prepared for it. So that's kind of more about the school route, what's being taught, what parents want to be taught. I'd love to hear more input that you might have of what you wish that your children was learning a little bit more. Next, I would kind of want to go into media. I wanted to start out with 2 videos of how media misrepresents sex, therefore giving the wrong impression to adolescents. The first video I'm going to show shows a more visual representation through a commonly watched show called Glee. So we'll go ahead and start with that, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the second video. So,
are you ready? In a minute.
Made it through the wilderness. Somehow I made it through. I didn't know how lost I was until I found you. I was beat, incomplete. I've been had. I was sad and blue, but you made me feel. Yeah, you made me feel shiny and new, like a virgin, touched for the very first time, like a virgin, when your heart beats next to mine. I'm gonna give you all my love, boy. My fear is fading fast. I've been saving it all for you, 'cause only love can last. You're so fine, and you're mine. Make me strong, yeah, you make me bold. On the rough side out, yeah, you love thought out what was scared and cold. Like a virgin, you make me feel like a virgin. Touched for the very first time.
all right, we'll kind of just stop right there for right now. But that video, as you could tell, very much romanticized what sex was. And it really showed what the media is kind of putting out there about sex. As you saw, there was 3 different couples who were all about to, well, not all of them were actually virgins in the actual TV show, but you know what I mean. They all showed what was like to have sex, and it looked fun. It looked, just like, what's the word I want to use? Like it was something that it's super casual, super just out of the blue, just felt like was right. Like there was not much planning for it and understandings of it. And that's kind of just what our media shows. It just shows that it's a non-committal, just for kicks and giggles, fun time to have sex. The next video I want to show is more of the along the lines of what music portrays about sex. And it's from one of actually my
It's amazing what a fresh
one of my favorite movies, which is Pitch Perfect, but it goes along more with what the music is showing us and what music is telling us about sex. So what I'm going to do is share my screen here. Just watch this short commercial.
It can teach us, like realizing fishing isn't about catching.
And our next category is songs about sex.
come on. Come on, come on, come on. 'Cause I may be bad, but I'm perfectly good at it. Chicks in the air, I don't care, I know the spell of it. My chicks and stones may break my bones, but chains and whips excite me. 'Cause I may be bad, but I'm perfectly good at it.
Sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about sex. All right. Let's talk about sex. A little bit. Let's talk about sex, baby.
All through the night I'll make love to you like you want me to.
And I guess this is the woman in you that brings out the man in me. I know I can't help myself. You're all in the world to me. It feels like the first time. It feels like the very first time. It feels like the first time.
All right, we'll just go ahead and stop right there. But as you can tell from that video, even that it went through a wide variety of songs about sex, and just like the topics that were being taught from just those small videos was, about whips and how the first time is just romantic time, and it's just amazing that music, even without even there being like video to it, can teach you so much about sex. And something else I was learning about was adolescents spend more than 7 hours a day on devices. And at this age of adolescence, what they're seeing through media can be their biggest influencers. This media romanticizes sex without sharing possible risks of unprotected sexual behavior. Exposure to such content is related to sexual outcomes ranging from body dissatisfaction to earlier sexual intercourse to less protective use and even pregnancy. And one thing that I've seen a lot of different parents use is different filters to help with kind of controlling what is being taught through through media. And one of the things I've seen a lot is using like the application of VidAngel, which you're able to pick different things in movies that you want to be taken out, whether that's language, that's nudity, sexual content, drugs, alcohol, violence, etc. And I know that one has been very popular about taking out content that you don't want your children to see, because some movies, it's just ridiculous how much they might put like the F word in something, or they put nudity in it when it's really just not called for and not needed. So that's kind of, I've seen other filters of, shutting off the internet at an earlier time, as well as there's different filters for not allowing like pornographic explicit sites to get through, just different ways to be able to monitor that media intake and what it's kind of teaching you. I kind of want to go over now some more research I found about the do's and don'ts of teaching sex. So what I'm going to do here, share my screen. And perfect. All right, so what we're going to talk about is the do's and don'ts of teaching of sex. Like I said, don't discredit love. Understand the importance of romantic attachments in a teenage life and the intensely strong feelings that they generate, even if your definition and perspective of love differ from your children. We've all been there in those teenage years. We've all felt that, oh, I love him or her so much. I do anything it reminds me of, if you've seen Inside Out, how in her brain she had that little, what was he? He was just like a actor, and he would just be like, I'd die for Riley. And you just hear that over and over, I'd die for Riley. It's just, that's how their brain works, is that they make these connections of what they believe is love. So don't discredit love and what they're perceiving it as. All right. Don't abstain from educating your own children. If you don't educate them, somebody else will, and that's just a part of life. They learn from behaviors and attitudes modeled by other adults, from media, popular culture, and certainly from peers. Stand up and let your own views be counted as part of their sexual education. In all the studies I've seen, teaching your own children about sex is going to be the biggest part of how they learn what is right and what is wrong, and what your family's beliefs are and how that's contrary to media beliefs. Talk about sex early and often. They don't always hear you. They may not always believe you, and they often don't remember, especially if they weren't ready to hear you, but they're often listening when they are pretending not to be. So just making that a point to, as much as you can, and depending on the comfort level of your child, is to be able to keep talking about sex in a way that they can understand it and process it. Avoid sexuality conversations that are all don'ts. Parents often recount that they speak to their children often about sex, yet generally these conversations are all about don'ts. Don't have sex, don't get pregnant, don't get a disease. You know, when a teenager, especially in those years, when they hear don't do this, think about when you were a teenager. Like, your brain automatically says, oh, well, I'm going to do that and I'm going to rebel against my parents. Make it a list of do's. It's don't. But what gets left out are the do's, as I was just saying. What they do to be sexually healthy with a partner that they care about. How can they decide whether a partner is interested in them as a person or just a potential sex partner? What ways can they address peer or partner pressure to be sexual when they don't feel they are ready? These topics need to be part and parcel of any discussion of healthy sexuality. Give them some things that they can do. Like I was saying before, if they don't want to hear those don'ts, give them things of what they can do. You can change any don't into a do and still be able to align with what you believe. Right time, right place. Provide accurate information in developmental context. Meet them where they are. A young child asking, what does sex mean, may wonder what the teacher meant when she said line up by sex for recess. Find out exactly the question is, then try to give an honest answer that meets their needs. We're going to go over that a little bit later with a video we're going to be watching, so I'll come back to that, but just focusing on answering questions and finding out the point of where this question stems from. Be real. Dispel myths and rumors. Provide accurate information. Use simple language, but respect their intelligence and curiosity. Above all, avoid talking down to your children and teens about sex. Empower your children. Let them know they deserve to be honored in their relationships, to have their own space, to keep their friends, to include their family and feel good about who they are. Teach them to give and take, but that in the end, a good relationship helps you to be more of who you already are and feel even more about it. Set positive expectations. Let your children know they deserve to have great sex. Discussing what's good about sex will help them to have positive standards by which to judge sexual experiences. Help your kids know why sex is worth waiting for, and give them realistic guidance about how they will know when it might be worth moving forward. With that said, I just wanted to mention, a lot of times when talking about abstinence, it's always don't have sex, period. And they don't get to understand that sex is a natural part of life that comes later when you are in a mature relationship, and you're doing it for the right reasons. So it shouldn't be sex is bad ever. It's more of sex should be something that you wait for when you're ready for. Use the media, the good, bad, and the ugly. Use topics presented in daily media sources and popular teen cultures as springboards for theological conversations about sex and relationships. Avoid proclamations and judgments, even about fictional characters. Your children will anticipate you reacting to them in the same way that reacting to them in the same way should they ever be in that situation. Consider role-playing through a situation presented on TV as collaborative, non-judgmental thought processing. It will provide insight to your child's views of the world and give you the opportunity to offer your ideas for them to reflect on. Live by example. If you have a good relationship, let your children know it. Let them witness you and your partner having a disagreement and working it out. Let them see you kiss and make up. I think that's a very crucial part, is for children to see what a good marriage, a good partnership looks like, for them to be able to build a foundation on later in life when they're in that same similar situation. Teaching kids about sex doesn't mean parenting without values. Acknowledging sexuality is not the same as condoning or giving permission to have sex. Helping their children understand that sexual thoughts and feelings are normal gives parents the opportunity to follow up with conversations about how and from what to be abstinent, as well as how to regulate their impulses and urges. It opens the door to continued conversation about how to feel safe and responsible when their adolescents begin to engage in intimate, physical, or sexual activities. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen more than you talk. Be the sounding board that helps developing teens come to their own good decision about sexual behaviors. Engaging kids in conversation about sexuality goes much further toward developing independent decision making than lecturing what they should and shouldn't do. Ask, don't tell. Find out what your children is thinking when talking about relationships or sexual experiences. What does it mean to have a boyfriend or girlfriend at what age? Listen to what it means to the teens at this time. The teens' level of understanding and participation may actually be appropriate for developmental level. Understand, don't judge. It is also helpful to talk about her friends and her relationships. Teens can be more chatty about their friends than about themselves, but listening to what their friends are doing will offer insight of how your teen herself feels. Don't ask too many questions or you won't get any information at all. Provide a respectful place for sharing what she is willing to share. Excitement of first love, feeling valued, wanted, desired by someone else in a very different, intensely intimate way. Keep it generic. Being willing to speak in generalities allows conversations about different subjects like sex to move forward without anyone too uncomfortable. Let your children know that you know of people that had certain experiences when they were younger, and that you have been in the difficult situations or know others who have been, and that you're not afraid to discuss those things on the same level. Avoid integrating your teen about what exactly they did or didn't do sexually. You don't want them to demand details about your love life either. Keeping things on the surface level gives permission to continue discussion about greater breadth and possible depth of topics, and allow you to communicate more honestly about sex in ways that may very well be helpful one day. All right, adolescence is for practice. The teenage years are great for learning about relationships. What is the difference between a crush and a real love, between a boyfriend and girlfriend and a friend who is a boy or a girl? What belongs on Facebook and what doesn't? How does he treat you when you're alone compared to when your friends or parents are around? Does she find a confidence or tell all of her friends about it the next day? Without a few battle scars, how will we know a good relationship when we see it? On the other hand, major mistakes that change our lives, like disease or unattended pregnancy, are best avoided. Things that are hard are not without value. Help your teens learn from his or her mistakes. The goal is to learn to develop and maintain healthy relationship skills. Protecting your children from trauma may not bring the message home, as well as the lessons learned from experiencing a broken heart themselves. Beware of the D word. Children fear disappointing their parents more than just about anything else in the world. While you should let your children know when their behaviors is dangerous and wrong, be very clear that there's nothing they could ever do that would make them stop loving them. Reassure them that after your blood pressure comes down, you still want what's best for them, and you will see they will find help when they need it. Avoid getting into situations where they feel of your disappointment or anger keeps them from continuing to you when they need you the most. Be clear that safety is non-negotiable. Think about the bottom line priorities for your child. Are nothing matters more than their safety. Be clear and repeat often that nothing matters more than knowing they're going to be okay. Establish a code word that they can use to get your attention and help when they need to get out of a potential dangerous or uncomfortable situation. Set a standard for protecting themselves from disease and unwanted pregnancy, regardless of whether you agree with their decision making about sex. Make sure that they know they can come to you for help if something goes wrong. Find a surrogate. Talking about sex is difficult. When necessary, identify and encourage them to ask for help from other trusted adults. It doesn't always have to be you. Build your own toolkit. Create a list of web resources at sexuality that you believe offer sound information and advice. Consider keeping books at home that support your values about sexuality while providing accurate information. Find resources in your community such as clinics, hotlines, therapeutic specialists, and support groups in case you or your child needs more help. So that's a little bit about the do's and don'ts. Sorry it was a little long, but we'll go ahead and keep moving on. Now I kind of want to go over the age groups of what you should be teaching regarding sex in each of the age groups. First, let's go ahead and watch this cute little video. All right.
One of the key tools parents can use to reduce the risk of sexual abuse is learning how to talk to their children about sexuality, and specifically teaching them healthy sexuality. I want to share a story about this, a very personal story, where I botched it big time. In fact, I have a good friend that says every family has a burnt waffle. And what she means by that is the first child gets the experiment. So I'm going to tell you about my first child and our discussion about sexuality and how I botched it, and contrast it hopefully with some positive examples that I had with some of my other children. So my oldest child was 8 years old. This was about 10 years ago. He's now 18. And Christy and I, my wife, we were attending a conference. And at this conference, the speakers who were speaking about parenting suggested that we talk to our children about sex at age 8. We were floored. We're like, there is no way in the world we are ready to have this discussion with him. He's not ready, we're not ready. So we kind of let it go. And a couple weeks later, I was exposed to some statistics about exposure to pornography and how the average age in this particular study suggested that boys are exposed to pornography between ages 9 and 11. This immediately struck a chord with me and caused me to reflect back to the speakers that suggested we talk to our kids at age 8. It made sense all of a sudden why they said it. They wanted us as parents to be the first ones to expose sex to our children and not let some other influence do it. So Christy and I said, okay, we're gonna do it. We made our plan. I was gonna take my son to a basketball game. We're gonna have the big talk. So if you can imagine this, we're driving to a basketball game, and being first time over paranoid parents, of course, he's in the back seat as an 8-year-old sitting in a booster seat. Just what you would expect from first time parents, right? So I just lay it out and tell all about how sex works, why we have sex. And I went on for about 20 minutes. And at the end of that 20 minutes, I asked him, son, do you have any questions? He said, yeah, Dad, I have one. So I'm all amped up thinking this was gonna be a great conversation. This was gonna be a major success. And then he asked this question, Dad, can we talk about something else? Well, you can imagine how I felt as a parent. I thought, oh, that was a total fail. But what wasn't a failure is it started something inside my family that I consider to be extremely valuable. And that is, we as parents learn the importance of talking about sexuality with our kids. So let me contrast this with his younger sister, who's 2 years younger. She was 6 at the time. We immediately had age-appropriate discussions with her about her body and about things that would make sense to her at her age. We didn't have the big talk, but we started the little talks. We started the dialogue. An interesting thing happened as she turned 8 years old. We didn't have to come to her. She came to us. I remember it vividly. We were sitting in our bedroom. I was sitting on the end of her bed. She asked a question that was very poignant about sex. Christy and I made eye contact, and we knew we were heading down the road. She went on for about 30 minutes to ask question after question about sex and sexuality. It was a very appropriate, healthy discussion. So I use that to contrast the importance of learning how to talk about sex with your kids. Now, let me tell you about the success with my first kid, my burnt waffle, if you will. It opened up an amazing dialogue with him, and throughout the years, now that he's 18, we've had very, very comfortable discussions. So even though that initial discussion I may have seen as a failure, it's turned into a great success. Let me share a very specific example from my daughter, the one that was 6 at the time. She's now 16. So when she was a sophomore in high school, she had a boy that she didn't feel comfortable with. This boy was showing affection to her without her consent. In his case, it was a hug. And she had asked him several times to stop hugging her, and he kept doing it without her consent. And she had the voice to say no. She understood consent. Probably just as important is she brought up the topic with us as parents. She told us about it, which allowed us as parents to do the things we needed to keep her safe, including helping her know what she needed to do to keep herself safe. It's a powerful example of the results of many years of ongoing discussions about sexuality. Some of the key things that I want you to take away from this. First, if you open a dialogue with your kids about sexuality, it will bear good fruit over time. Second, you as a parent have the responsibility to protect your kids, to keep them safe. And sometimes having hard or what can be uncomfortable conversations with your kids about sex is part of that responsibility. Third, if you open dialogue with your kids, the likelihood that they will elevate conversation to you when they need help or when they are at risk is much higher than if you never talk about the topic. Teaching your kids about sexuality is one of the key tools that you can use as parents and caregivers to keep your children safe from sexual abuse.
All right. I really like that guy. He's a fantastic teacher. I learned a lot the first time I listened to his lesson. Sorry, I'm just trying to go back. There we go. All right, I think there was a lot of great pinpoints he did. He talked a lot about like the different age groups of how you can start off very young and have those great conversations growing up to get into the more deeper stuff. So from the studies I found, birth to 2 years old is when we start talking with our children about understanding their body parts. Boys and girls are different. They have different body parts. They like different things. Use the correct terminology and talk about the functions of the body, where poop comes from. Poop comes from the bum. Pee comes from the penis or the vulva, and make it casual. If we do these, it can be traumatizing children if we sit them down and, kind of give them this death glare and like, this is what this does. And, it can scare them. So making it casual, having them ask questions and being able to help them understand their bodies more. The next 2 to 5 year olds. So we're going to watch this video and then kind of go over a little bit more.
Do you still have your doctor book?
This is such a good
Run and go
video.
get it and we'll look and see if it's in there. We are going to find out where babies come from.
I saw the picture as Aunt Julie having a bag of a baby, holding a baby in a bag in your stomach. Eve thinks that there's a bag in your stomach where your baby could go.
That's kind of true. It's not like a grocery bag, like when you go to the store and you think of a bag. And it's not like a backpack where I say, go get your bag and go put your books in it. It's not that kind of bag. It's a special bag that's made out of, I don't know.
Probably golden.
Golden? I don't know. It's probably more clear. I don't know the answer to that, but it's called a uterus. Maybe it's in your doctor book. Do you still have your doctor book?
Yeah.
Go get it. Run and go get it and we'll look and see if it's in there.
Do you know why I'm covering this part?
Why?
It's because something is there that I don't want you to see.
What is it?
I can't show you.
Will I get mad? Oh, I'm not gonna get mad. I know what you're doing. Are you feeding your baby?
I brought it
Huh?
just in case it's inside my shirt, and I'm intending it's in my belly, and it's going to get born somewhere.
You know what? I played that game all growing up. That's the game I played. It's fun to pretend. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Wow.
All right. This is what I need. Okay. We are going to find out where babies come from.
They come from heaven.
They come from heaven. I do believe that. But there's also a very scientific way that God uses to get the babies here. Did you know?
No.
Yeah, there's a lot of science behind
I get it.
No, you don't.
No. Jesus was the first baby in the whole world. Yes.
No. Let's find out if there is an answer in here that I can show you. Okay, here we go. Found it. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
This is deep stuff. Are you guys ready? Okay. So this is a woman's body right there. Can you see? And there's a special sac. It's right there in her stomach above my finger. And in the sac grows a baby. See?
Yeah.
Like that. Does that make sense?
Yes. So I was right.
You were right. It's a very small bag.
Yes. Doesn't look like a bag.
No, and it doesn't function like a regular bag either. So maybe it is kind of golden and magical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it kind of special?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the specialist thing in our bodies.
That's what they eat.
Mm.
That's where babies nurse.
Oh, I think I know what these are.
Yeah. What?
I don't want to show on the camera.
Okay, so I found another picture. So this is another picture of the woman's bag. It's called a uterus.
And that's the opening and closing.
And as the baby gets bigger and bigger, what do you think the bag does?
Gets bigger.
Yeah. So is that why a woman who's going to have a baby has a big, big, big stomach?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. And so the baby gets big and big and big. And you can see the belly's getting big.
Yes.
And then they're born.
Yep.
Like that. See?
Yeah. That looks like baby Lucy.
Kind of.
What?
Those are pictures of the baby as they get bigger. So they start off really, really tiny, tiny. So tiny that like they're smaller than your fingernail. And then they get big.
So this is small, medium, huge.
And then they're born. Whenever my kids ask questions of delicate nature, I always answer them in the best way I can that will meet their curiosity. And I don't go further than what their curiosity requires. Because then when they get older and their curiosity expands, then I can give more information. So I kind of let them be the guide of when I tell them how Mother Nature works. I let them be the guide and they can decide like, I'm curious about this. I'm gonna ask Mom. And then I'm always totally upfront, totally honest, truthful, and I've gotten myself comfortable in saying all of the health terms so that I can just say it and own it and not be embarrassed by it.
All right, we'll go ahead and stop there for this video. I really love that mom. She teaches it so well, and I like the way that she introduced it. So back to what 2 to 5 year olds need to be kind of taught and understanding is more about boundaries, consent, touch. We'll touch a little bit more on consent later, but just letting the children know that's not okay just to go up and touch somebody else. Understanding when it's appropriate to be naked. At this time, a lot of children strip down and they think it's okay to be naked in front of people, but understanding when is the right time. Understand that our bodies tell us different things, privacy for themselves and others. And it is common to touch genitals, but discuss that's not appropriate in different settings. 5 to 8 year olds. We'll go through it and then show the video, but understanding more about gender differences, online safety, since this age, most children have their own electronic device. Understand reproductive organs. All bodies are different. And bodies change the older they get. In a few years, they'll start experiencing different changes to their body. And pornography, we'll go a little bit more into that later as well. And that there are different types of love. And understanding what dating is, family roles, and proper hygiene. So we'll go into this video.
Do you know why we're here today?
For video?
We're going to talk about where babies come from.
Do you know anything about intercourse?
So, today we're going to talk about how babies are made and where they come from.
Would you like to know how babies are made?
Made a bottle. Humans are made a bottle.
Yeah,
I knew it.
That's true.
From God.
From God?
I thought it was because of God that sent us down into your stomach to be born.
To be born?
Sperm, egg, collide, blah.
What do you mean, sperm, egg, collide? Where did you learn that from?
Nick,
Who's Nick?
my brother.
What did he tell you?
Bad stuff.
What makes me a man and what makes mom a woman?
You have bigger hands in there. There's some kind of hole here, like an igloo.
Oh, okay. So, Miles, you know that me and Mama are girls.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Do you know, is there a specific body part that you know of?
The place between the mommy's legs.
Oh, the vagina, right?
The vagina.
You know, it's called the vagina.
Ah!
Yeah. Okay.
How do you pronounce it? Did I say it right?
It's called the vagina.
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 Vagina. Yeah. Vagina. How do you say it?
How did your Tia Alice have her baby?
She came out of her butt.
Her butt?
Does it come through the bottom? The butt?
It came out of her vagina.
That's weird.
So when two people are in love,
Don't say that again.
Okay, no more love.
Melody, when two adults want to have a child, they have to have
Work
sex.
together. Work together.
work
They have to
together.
work together, yes.
I said no more love.
No more love. All right, we're going to use another word. Mommy
No,
and daddy hang
no.
out.
The woman has an egg.
Egg.
Yes.
The mom provides egg, and the dad provides the sperm.
Do you know where the sperm comes from? Where does it come out? Do you know where it comes out? Sperm comes out of your penis.
And when he releases that fluid, when they're having sex, when they're making love, that makes a baby. I don't like that.
Okay.
I don't like that. I don't like that.
And when that sperm comes out of dad's penis into mom's body, then sometimes it can make a baby.
I did not know
You
that.
did not know that?
And there's lots of sperms floating around.
How does the penis get to it? The vagina.
We want to talk about it medically. Like mommy's a nurse.
I do
you know,
not
you know what
even know
mommy
what that
does,
means.
right?
And then how does daddy give the sperm to mommy?
They have sex.
What?
I told you to tell me a lot of stuff.
So mommy and daddy got together and we took off all our clothes and we got inside the blanket so we were really warm. And then mommy and daddy did a special dance and there you were. That's how you were made.
Oh my gosh, this is really, really, really not good if you took off all your clothes off.
See this pocket?
Yeah.
Okay. The pocket is the vagina. Okay? And in order to have a child, daddy has to put his penis in the pocket. Do you understand?
So the penis goes into the vagina, goes inside.
Oh. That's really disgusting, you know. Or not. Oh.
Is this uncomfortable?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, you're gonna look at the world a lot different now.
I really liked that video. I thought it was so cute. I love the different ways of parenting, of how the different parents went over all of information regarding sex, and all of them did such a wonderful job. I really liked that. A lot of takeaways from that. We'll keep going. So 9 to 12-year-olds, at this age, they start understanding more about how their bodies are changing and that it's completely normal that it's happening. This is where we start going into more about like safe sex, what sexting is and how that's not appropriate, understanding puberty in depth, how girls have periods and different hair growth and different body parts become larger. Boys have hair growth, wet dreams, different stuff like that, and that this is a normal part of growing up. As well as going over sexually transmitted infections that can come through sex. And then parents' views and beliefs on when sex is appropriate. 12 to 18-year-olds start learning more about drugs and alcohol and how that can affect their judgments, healthy versus unhealthy relationships, depth of what sex is, and how to make healthy choices. And we'll watch one more video to conclude with this section.
How to talk with my kid about where babies come from. There's no way around it. At some point, your little one will ask, "Where do babies come from?" It's normal for children to be curious about pregnancy and reproduction. Don't worry, you don't need to be an expert or give them every single detail. The most important thing is being open and available when they want to talk and giving them simple answers they can understand. First things first, try to stay calm and not act upset if your kid asks a question that makes you feel shocked or embarrassed. Young kids don't know that talking about this stuff can be awkward for adults. Being open and calm sends the message that it's okay for them to talk with you about it. A good place to start is to ask them where the question is coming from. Are they wondering how they were born? Did they hear something from a friend? This will help you figure out how to best answer. With younger children, you can keep it simple and direct. For example, you can say, "A baby grows in a parent's belly and comes out their vagina." That may be all it takes to satisfy their curiosity. If they ask, "How does the baby get in the belly?" you can say something like, "Most women have tiny eggs in a special part of their belly. Most men have very tiny seeds called sperm. If sperm and egg meet, they can grow into a baby." Afterwards, check their understanding and encourage more discussion by asking, "Does that answer your question?" Or, "What else do you want to know?" It's really up to you to decide how much detail you want to provide based on the conversations you've already had and what you think your child can understand. There are many ways to make a family, and kids this age can absolutely understand reproduction in a way that includes LGBTQ parents, as well as families who came together through adoption, surrogacy, or reproductive assistance. You can say things like, "Some families have a mommy and a daddy, some have two mommies, and some have two daddies." Or, "Sometimes eggs and sperm need a little help from other people to get together and make a baby." It's also good for kids to understand that some people have babies and some don't. It's a big responsibility and a personal choice, and what's right for one person isn't always right for another. Kids can also understand that there are ways to prevent pregnancy. You can say something like, there are things people can use that stop sperm from getting to an egg if they don't want to have a baby. Research shows that open and honest discussions about this stuff doesn't encourage kids to have sex any earlier. Instead, they show your kid that they can talk with you for information and help. Want to learn more? Check out plannedparenthood.org/parents.
Awesome. I thought that explained it just well, kind of a brief overview of kind of like what we were just learning about the importance of going over and helping your child understand. The next topic I want to talk about is consent. This one's going to be a pretty brief topic, and there's a video I found. I love videos. I think they're like the best way to teach. I'm a very visual learner, and this video I felt really explained it perfectly. So we're going to go ahead and watch this, and we'll move on to pornography after this.
Look, Limu, someone needs help customizing and saving with Liberty Mutual.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
You get closer.
Nope.
Still works. Still works. Still works.
All right.
Hormones is racing. The bed's right there. She's naked. You're naked. I don't care if you got the tip in. No means no.
We are going to talk about consent.
Have you heard that word consent?
This is about something called consent. This is really important, all right?
Does it mean like something giving someone like permission?
Yes.
Basically means you're giving permission, right? So if it's your iPad and someone wants to use it, they should ask you first and not just take it.
But consent for like when you start to date a boy.
Ew.
And if the boy wants to do some stuff that you don't want to do, that means you're not giving consent.
Consent is, yeah, that's right, you're right. Consent is about permission. Like,
If you're not having consent, that means that it counts as rape.
What is rape? It's kind of like when someone takes advantage of someone else and has sex with them.
Would you need a yes from the girl, or do you assume that just because your body feels like you guys need to do it, then she needs to do it? Or do you need her to agree?
Agree.
Would it be agreeing because she put her leg on you? Is that agreeing to sexual consent? No. What if she just was rubbing your little head and telling you all nice things and playing with your little ears? Is that consent?
No. What does it mean when she says no?
Just step away from her.
It means no.
Just means
it's very
no.
simple. No means no.
No means no.
So even if she's sitting in front of you butt naked, is that consent?
Nope.
What if she twerking, she get up and she do a little booty thing? No. What? Do you got any questions? I mean, you're cutting a little red there.
Her name is Rachel, and we believe this is Ken, right?
Hello, Ken. You were so handsome. This is Sheila, and this is Tyrone.
let's say this is you a few years from now, like maybe when you're 60.
60.
We'll ask.
So they're going out to this club together. She's about to get toe up. So she's going and she's throwing him back. Woo, one bottle. So he sees, okay, well, now she a little tipsy, so I might get some tonight.
Maybe he's been drinking or something, and he's not his normal self. And he wants to kiss Rachel, right? And she doesn't want to be kissed because maybe he smells like, alcohol or something.
So should Barbie ask if they can have sex?
To make sure,
But he's drunk.
Well, then wait until he's not drunk and then ask.
Okay.
Justin Bieber wants to hug Rachel, so.
Okay. So
I bet she'd want to hug.
Exactly. Well, if it wasn't Justin Bieber, let's say this was a stranger. Well, yeah, a stranger. And the stranger wants to come up and hug.
Oh. Like the consent wise, like what is consent? Like how do you explain this?
Nice boobs. Are those real? Is that okay?
No, stupid. Get out of my space.
If Ken is not acting appropriately, it would be good if his friends kind of pulled him back, right? and said, let's go someplace else.
You're married. Okay. You've been having sex with your husband. One day you're starting to become intimate and you don't want to. Is your husband entitled to have sex with you?
Like he's supposed to. No. I mean, you can, but it's like, you know, you both have to agree.
You know what? Actually, this alcohol is wearing off and I really need to go. No, you stay.
Well, you don't own her. Let her be. That's her choice.
She's tipsy. Tyrone's taking her home. He going to her house. Doop, 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 doop. Here, let me help undress you. Make sure you get to night okay. Oh, no. Well, just come on. It's okay. You love me.
It's okay to have sex with anyone.
Anyone? Not with anyone.
I mean, you know, like, yeah, I mean, you know what I mean.
Okay.
No.
If an act like that happens to someone, what should they do afterwards?
Call the police, and I'd tie him up, shut your mouth. When the police come, untie them, and then say, it's all yours.
Always remember, no means no. Even drunk, high, half blind, if it's not a clear yes, I will, it means no. Maybe even means no. Got it? Good.
I think that video explains it perfectly. I really love that video. I think it's so funny. All right, so we're now going to transition a little bit over to pornography. With pornography, we're going to talk about the parental influence that can help with teaching children about pornography and what you can personally do as a parent to help your child. Again, I like videos. Sorry, we're going to watch, I think this is the last video, so lucky you that you get to hear me after that. Just kidding. But I'm going to go ahead. So we're going to watch a cute video on parents' impact on educating children about pornography.
Parents have the primary responsibility for teaching and protecting their children. This video is provided to assist them in that sacred purpose and is not for group instruction of children.
I have eyes.
I have a mouth.
I have a nose. Hands.
Feet.
Ears.
A stomach.
A heart.
A brain.
Fingers.
A spleen.
My amazing body is a gift from Heavenly Father.
And the most important thing he wants me to do with my body is take care of it.
Help it grow strong. Help it learn.
Help it be happy.
Help it be safe. I love going out on the water with my family. My mom and dad have taught me to love and respect the ocean. They taught me to swim and be safe. They taught me to be careful in big waves, to be aware of corals, riptides, and dangerous plants and animals. If there is danger, I try to avoid it. When something dangerous happens, I learned that it's important to get help. When we know how to be safe, we always have a great time. Just like there are dangers in the ocean, there are dangers in the world, too.
One of those dangers is pornography.
Pornography means bad pictures of people with little or no clothes on.
But just like anyone can learn to be safe in the ocean, anyone can learn to keep their mind safe from pornography and have a great time in life.
One of the ways Heavenly Father has given us to stay safe from pornography is the gift of the Holy Ghost.
Bad pictures could be anywhere, on signs, computers, on phones, or in stores.
These kinds of pictures give you a bad feeling because pornography offends the Holy Ghost. And the Holy Ghost helps you feel that it's wrong.
But they also create a feeling of curiosity that makes you want to look at more.
Where do these feelings come from? You see, your brain has a feeling part and a thinking part.
The two parts work together.
The feeling part of your brain reacts instantly to things around you with feelings such as fear, pleasure, anger, surprise, or attraction. Then, the thinking part of your brain helps you to think through whether your emotional reaction is proper, logical, and helpful. Pornography pulls at the feeling part like a magnet because it's triggering natural feelings of attraction.
But the thinking part can remind him that these feelings were meant to be aimed at real people.
Not phones, magazines, or bad pictures.
They were meant to build strong relationships and families.
Heavenly Father gave us strong feelings of love and attraction that draw us to others.
These feelings have a powerful effect on the feeling part of our brains. Feelings of love help us build strong families. That's good.
But pornography grabs those feelings and points them in the wrong direction. That hurts families.
Pornography is dangerous, but here's some things that you can do to keep safe.
First, when you see it, call it what it is.
Say, that's pornography. That's immodest. Or, that's a bad picture. Send a clear message to your brain that what you're seeing is not good.
Second, turn it off or turn away.
Pornography tries to lure you in, to tempt you to want to see more. You know better than that, so turn it off and turn away. And third, talk to your mom, your dad, or a trusted adult. They love you and will help you.
You okay? You look like you got something on your mind.
It might be hard to talk about seeing pornography at first, but it's the best thing you can do.
Thanks for coming and talking to us. Can you tell us what happened?
Just because you saw pornography and just because it made you curious or interested doesn't mean you're a bad person. Remember that many people love you. Jesus Christ and Heavenly Father love you, no matter what.
Sometimes one person just needs to be the bravest and say, guys, we shouldn't be watching that.
Next. If you have gone back to look at more, don't let embarrassment stop you from talking to the grown-ups you trust and from talking to the Lord. Pray to Heavenly Father. If you talk to Him, He will help you. He has great blessings in store for you. And He wants you to be strong, wise, and good. He wants you to be safe, to protect your amazing body and experience the many joys and blessings that life has to offer.
Have you seen these kinds of pictures? Now would be a great time to talk to your parents about it.
That's a great start. So what I kind of wanted to talk about, first off, I love that video. I know I've said that about every video, but I feel like that video really shows how parents can set up that open communication with children. Parental influence is an important proposed protective factor against potential negative effects of pornography use. Open family communication and a willingness to discuss sex and are positive ways to limit influence of sexually explicit media on a child. Parents should be encouraged to be more open with their children, but solely rely on parents to provide information about pornography puts children who are already disadvantaged at a greater risk. What that's talking about is just that if there are parents out there that's not talking about pornography, those children are going to be at a risk of not learning it from like a solid source or somebody that they can trust in, that have the right expectations. They're going to learn it elsewhere. So getting to your children first is probably the best thing that you can do. The school systems support addressing pornography, yet don't do a good job of explaining what it is or what to do when it come upon it. In a study, when asked about parental monitoring and use of restriction functions like filtering, the majority of young people reported that their parents did not monitor their internet use. This was about 82% of youth, nor use restricted technologies to limit access. Though filters work great, it isn't always going to resist your child from seeing pornography. They have friends and other influences that can still give them access. So the importance of talking with your children, setting up what your beliefs are and what your family's beliefs are for what happens when you see pornography, and be open and clear with them at a younger age, so when these things do happen, they know how to work with that and how to set up their own safeguards. I wanted to go over some statistics and graphs about teenagers and pornography and how often they are seeing these kind of explicit things. Let me just pull that up. All right. So here, there was a survey given out of 209 men and 143 women. 93% of men have watched a porno film, and 61% of female have watched a porno film. That's a lot. And I mean, yes, statistics are shown that men do watch more pornography than women, but even 61% of this female population has seen a porno film in one way or another. And then it goes on with frequency of use during the 6 months prior to the survey. Out of those men, or those boys and girls, 8% of men watch porno films or some sort of pornography several times a day. Only 1% of the women, or 1 out of the 143. Almost daily was 39 of the men, 2 women, and weekly was 30 versus 12. That's a lot of pornography, and we'll go in later about the effects of what pornography does to the brain, but that's just a statistic to just show how much it's being watched. There was another study done, 193 men versus 87 women. With whom did you watch pornographic films with? Across the board, most of them had watched it alone. With a boyfriend and girlfriend, more women are, other than watching it alone, are more likely to watch it with a boyfriend and girlfriend versus with friends, while men are more likely to watch it with friends than with a significant other. But that's a huge jump for 97% watch it alone. Or sorry, 97 out of those men watch it alone. And then how frequently do you speak with friends about pornographic videos and films? For the women, it's never. Or generally speaking, it's never. While men, they're between the 2 and 3 range, between sometimes and solemnly. And then have your friends seen pornographic films? For men, it's about 46 have. Most of half their friends, I would say, have seen it, while the girls, it's about half of them. All right. Sorry if I'm not making any sense. Hope I'm making sense. All right. So, with pornography, it has created a way for youth to learn more about sexual education, but studies have shown that youth who consume pornography may develop unrealistic sexual beliefs and values. Among the findings, higher levels of permissive sexual attitudes, sexual preoccupation, and sexual earlier experimentation have been correlated with more frequent consumption of pornography. Also, pornography typically portrays women as subordinate to men in workplace relationships, usually as women being a secretary to a boss that's a male. Women submit to male sexual needs and appear most eager to please them sexually. Pornography violates a traditional sexual script that sex should take place only between consenting adults in a married or committed monogamous relationship. Internet pornography depicts sex as driven solely by pleasure seeking and not associated with love, affection, or committed relationship. Risky Risky sexual behaviors are depicted in internet pornography with infrequent condom use, multiple sex partners, extravagant sex and ejaculation, and often sex with at least 3 partners simultaneously. The shift in attributes of young people towards women sexually and the purpose of sex can be associated with discrimination against women, hostility, and greater acceptance of rape myths, which may lead to more violence towards women or contribute to risky sexual behavior. Additionally, research suggests that adolescents who use pornography, especially that found on the internet, have lower degrees of social interaction, increases in conduct problems, higher levels of delinquent behavior, higher incident of depression symptoms, and decreased emotional bonding with caregivers. Now I want to go over a little bit about the effects that it has on these children. Concerns regarding children and adolescents using pornography center around 3 basic themes. 1, the easy access to pornography, the content of pornography, and the ability of a child or adolescent to separate pornography fiction from sexuality and sexual relationship facts. Something to think about is children less than 7 or 8 years old have difficulty differentiating between what happening on screen and what happens in real life. We're going to go ahead, go back to this, and we're going to talk a little bit about some more consequences of child and adolescent pornography viewing. So some of the things that I came across as consequences are problem sexualized behaviors, early initiation of sexual activity, high risk sexual behaviors, sexual aggression, gender role distortion, objectification of women, unrealistic expectations of sexual relationships, brain changes, development internet disorder, which is addiction, and development internet pornography disorder, which I thought was pretty interesting. Those are some pretty scary things that can happen to children who watch pornography. The primary concern related to pornography viewing in young children under that age of 12 years old is the development of personalized sexual behaviors. Problem sexualized behaviors. Problem sexualized behaviors involve sexual knowledge beyond what would have been expected for that child's age and development levels, such as children engaging in sophisticated sexual acts, such as intercourse or oral sex. Problem sexualized behaviors in young children also have been linked to trauma and violence, insufficient supervision, and impulse control problems. The access to pornography nowadays is easier than ever. In a recent study involving 0 to 4-year-olds recruited from a low-income clinic stated that nearly 96% of the children had used a mobile device, 75% owned their own device, and most 2-year-olds used a device regularly. It is a reality that the majority of pediatric nurse practitioners are providing care to children of all ages who are familiar with and often very sophisticated in regards to internet technology. So all in all, pornography can be really damaging for a child, let alone an adolescent. There's not anything really good that comes from pornography. It can cause a lot of issues in these children's lives, and it's just something that as parents and families and teachers that we need to focus on and help children understand the meaning of sex and pornography, why they're there, what they're used for, and how to either avoid them or be able to abstain from them until a time is better right, or not at all for pornography use. Anyways, I really appreciate anybody that has watched this and hope you learned a great deal from it. I know I've learned a lot from it, and it was fun for me to learn and be able to share with you. Thank you so much for watching.